Phil Berriman has waited 20 years to write The Waccybaccyboat, the fascinating, detailed story of the caper which made him the UK's king of cannabis. He's revealing the Sunshine Coast's drug secrets and why the nickname Costa Crime was more than justified. Benalmadena was where he continued to enjoy a lavish lifestyle funded by his legitimate UK car part business. But tongues were wagging. He must be a big-time drug smuggler.
We had an absolutely fantastic time. We had a party of legendary proportions. You know, you couldn't write it, you couldn't make it up. You know, we had a 120-foot yacht. It was packed with beautiful women and nice guys, and you know, whenever we were slack on business, we'd go into the 24-hour square and spread a rumour around that there was a party on board a super yacht, and we'd just bust them down to the Aubrienda, and the party would continue till the early hours. We were earning too much money. I was earning too much money back in Teesside, and we'd got into the nightclub scene years before that. And here in Spain, it went on till 6 o'clock in the morning, so it suited us, you know, fantastically. We would party all night and then laze about with jet skis and power boats and things like that on board the boat in the deep water mooring area. So yeah, it was fantastic, really. But thinking back, I don't know how on earth we managed to continue for as long as we did.
Phil's love of the high life, the designer shops, the trendy bars up and down the coast didn't only attract the attentions of police and customs. By now, he was on the radar of gangsters who wanted his supposed skills.
Well, they naturally assumed that from obviously the police involvement and the various agencies, they naturally assumed that I was so good at this job that I hadn't been caught. So it attracted the attention of various criminal organisations who wanted to get into the cannabis smuggling business because it was very, very lucrative at that time. What they wanted was my skills, my marine engineering, my boating skills, and my methods, basically, because to all intents and purposes, I appeared to be a very, very successful cannabis smuggler without ever getting caught. So I was an extremely attractive proposition to these criminal enterprises who wanted to get in on the business.
Gibraltar, the British overseas territory, is not only a trade and tourist magnet. North Africa, where wacky-backy is grown in abundance, is just beyond that Mediterranean mist. It's where he collected the chartered 42-foot racing schooner the Melanie to be used for the ill-fated voyage. Today's holidaymakers wouldn't believe what Phil witnessed when darkness fell and even the famous apes turned in for the night.
Well, it was a hive of activity and very busy. There was plenty of army and navy there, but once it got dark it turned into a war zone in the waters around Gibraltar and La Linea, with the smuggling and the gunboats and the Winston boys smuggling tobacco, hashish from Morocco. It was just every single possible, every night as soon as it got dark, it kicked off, and the vast majority of tobacco and everything went into La Linea, but that was also used as a cover for the smuggling of hashish from Morocco, which was only 15 miles away, and Ceuta, which is only 12 miles away, the Spanish enclave.
Port Banús too was a hotbed of dodgy activity. Phil loved it.
Either whether they were bank robbers or they were smugglers or fraudsters, everybody seemed to be attracted to that area. Along with the rich and famous, they wanted to rub shoulders with the rich and famous. The villains used to like to meet in the Navy bar and Sinatra's bar, and the amount of times they would call on a meeting, and it was always in Sinatra's bar. And the police and the customs knew this, and they would go down and they'd be dressed up with the Rolex on and the designer gear, and the villains would be dressed up in the designer gear and the Rolex, and basically everybody knew what they were doing, and everybody acted accordingly. It was just parties, women, drugs, flash cars, flash boats, and just party lifestyle basically. And that's probably why it became known as the Costa del Crime.
But Phil's past was catching up with him. His dodgy dealings back in Teesside were returning to haunt him.
Well, basically, I enlisted the help of some heavy-duty gangsters to resolve a problem. I'd had a bit of an altercation with some guy that was in the security business in Stockton, and it had gone to court, and the guy was basically trying to retrieve his reputation, and I believed that my life was in danger, or the people around me believed that my life was in danger from this guy, and I enlisted the help of a Newcastle firm to resolve the problem and basically threaten him to leave me alone, and I was happy to pay for that. Unfortunately, I didn't realise that this particular firm were trying to get into the cannabis business, and they saw my skills, and of course they were under the impression that we were involved in the cannabis smuggling, and the fact that I was living the high life, they assumed that I was a highly successful smuggler, and they were trying to get into that business. Instead of asking me for payment, which had been agreed, I was then recruited to supply them with a suitable vessel, for which they had their own crew. They then wanted me to continue and find them another vessel, and it was basically a case of intimidation. We couldn't really get out of it. These people were First Division gangsters, if you like, and their business was violence and intimidation, and there seemed to be no way out. As far as the police were concerned, they were convinced that I was a cannabis smuggler, so it wasn't as though I could go to the police and ask them for protection like an ordinary person. My lifestyle indicated that I was very knowledgeable in the subject of vessels, and we were operating in Benalmadena anyway, which was again a hotbed for smugglers in those days, in the late 80s and early 90s. So it was just a natural assumption for them that we were fully involved, if you like, and they were trying to break into the cannabis smuggling business that operated all along the Costa del Sol.
The death threat would stay with Phil as he sailed the Melanie to pick up the cargo from a waiting mothership 170 miles off the coast of Gambia. They would encounter a hurricane, the doldrums and engine failure. They'd run perilously low on rations and eventually dine on flying fish. The two-man crew would threaten mutiny, they'd even scorch under the intense sun. And all the while, they were under satellite surveillance as the reception party was being made ready.
We got into some trouble in the South Canary Islands near Morajabal in Fuerteventura. We got into almost a hurricane. It was certainly a storm, and my three crew members refused to come on deck. So I had to do that myself. They'd lock the hatches, and to me that's an absolute stupid thing to do, refusing to soldier when you needed most. And then on the way back, we got caught in Hurricane Chris and came very close to disaster.
The end of the adventure of duress came when the Melanie sailed appropriately into Smuggler's Creek near Falmouth on the south coast of England. Phil and his two-man crew had been at sea 9 weeks. Armed police were waiting. He was arrested and locked up prior to the first of many court appearances.
I was actually relieved when that cell door shut. There was a fantastic sense of relief, because I knew that by getting captured, it was fairly obvious that I'd done my absolute utmost to appease these people, and that my family, my children, were safe. And I was safe. There's nothing else they could do with me. I put my hands up. I said, yes, it was me. I did it. I did mention in the interview that I was under threat from people. I didn't make a big deal of it. And I didn't realise that ultimately would become my duress, a complete duress, defence of duress.
Phil Berriman still holds the title of being a record-breaking drug smuggler. He's had money to burn, a flash lifestyle, the cars, the leggy blondes, and even a floating Spanish gin palace. So today, at the age of 57, what really turns him on?
The buzz now is relaxation, being completely out of that picture, away from those type of people. I like to live a modest life. I appreciate my family. I appreciate that the friends I've got now. I've got less than a handful of friends, and they're genuine friends, and I like to spend time with them. And they're not here, they're not with me because I have disposable income. They're not hanging around with me because I was famous or anything like that. It's a completely different scenario, and one of the things that I enjoy most of all is not being a target for the police or the customs. You know, at this moment, for the last, since about 2008, it took till then, and now they leave me alone. I can cross borders, I can go in through frontiers. I've taken my boat from Morocco to Spain and never had a pull. I've driven through these borders as well, same thing. Never ever was I ever caught with anything or found with anything, but I was always stopped and searched. Now I'm just a normal Joe. I can come to Spain, I can chill out and have a nice time, I can go sailing, and they don't launch the Coast Guard and the helicopter every time I put to sea now.